Hello and welcome everyone to the Difference Maker Summit Week 5. I am so glad you're here. The topic for this week is Mastering the Influence Game, how to be a top influencer and a top leader in your niche. And we're featuring a special guest today on our interview. I'm Lynn Sanders, the story marketing coach at Difference Makers Media, and it's my passion to inspire, empower, and transform lives with all of you, with difference makers, by sharing stories, tips, and strategies from visionary business leaders so you can make a bigger difference in the world. And I first want to thank you all just for being here. I'm so grateful that you've taken time for your busy schedules, wherever you are, whether this is live or on the replay, because we together can make a bigger impact. And I want to give a special shout out to Roz Betts, who had made a comment in her comment stream that she wasn't sure if she could make it, but she would try to do so at 4 a.m. from Australia. And I have to say thank you. That really touches me that people are waking up at all odd hours to be here, because I do believe that together we're going to grow our influence in the world. So to make the most of this time, I want you to get engaged. That means write in your name and where you're hanging up from in the comment stream. And then please be feeling free to write any questions or comments you have, because the more you get engaged, the more you participate, the more you'll all learn, and we're going to learn together from a very special guest, as I said. First, in order also to get more information and more value from the program, I want you to be able to get gifts. We want to over-deliver here, so if you would be kind enough to register as an attendee, and it doesn't cost anything, and I'm asking our wonderful wingman to post the links for you. You can go to the registration page and see the entire lineup of our programs for 7 weeks and get all the bonus gifts if you just click the button that says register. If you don't feel like going to the registration page and just want to go right to the bonus page, you can do that too. Put in your name and email, and it's our opportunity to keep you informed of our programs and give you tips and other bonus gifts along the way. But we'd love to have you as a registered attendee. After the 7 weeks, we will be creating a recorded product of these 7 hours of content plus bonuses, and going to throw in a couple extra gifts for a price of $147, even though the value will be over $1,000. So we're all going to make a difference together. And now, without further ado, first I would like to welcome our wingman, my dear friend and producer and host of the Saturday Morning Marketing Smarty Show, founder and president of R&D Hotline. If you have a question, just ask the hotline. Roland Takaoka. Roland, welcome. And where are you hanging out from today?
Hi, everybody. Kind of overcast for Southern California, but that is where we are watching and being in the green room today. Thank you.
And how are you feeling about being here, Roland?
I'm excited because I looked at Teresa's website, and one thing that I want to make clear is you ought to visit her website and read through her blog. She's got a prolific list of months and months of blogs. If you want to hear more of what Teresa says, just go to her blog and read it. So we're talking about a lot of freebies and some other special things today, but there's a lot of information there, so I would try her blog for sure.
Thank you, Roland. So let's go without further ado into the. Let me give you a little bio about Teresa. I'm really honored and excited to have her here. Teresa de Grosbois is an internationally recognized speaker, a trainer, a 3 times best-selling author. She's the founder of Wildfire Academy and the founder of the Evolutionary Business Council, which is an invitation-only council of speakers and influencers who are focused on teaching principles of success all around the world. In addition to that, Teresa just published October 1st her new book, Mass Influence, The Habits of the Highly Influential. I just finished reading it, and I have to tell you, it's so good. I'm going to read it again. I've underlined parts. You're going to be hearing portions of the book during this program today. But anybody who wants to achieve success in life needs to learn how to achieve influence and how to do it properly. And that's what this book is all about, and that's what you're going to learn today. You're getting the first inside scoop on the highlights from this book. So Teresa is going to share with you a lot of information, but I want to just give you one sentence from her book that I just really love, and then we'll launch into Teresa's interview. And this is towards the end of the book, and she says, some of you know you were here to do something bigger, to create change, to leave behind a world better than the one you came into. If you do not step into who you are, there will always be longing in your heart for something more, the ability to influence change. So without further ado, Teresa de Grosbois, welcome to our show.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Lynn and Roland. You guys are just wonderful. I love the work you do.
Oh, thanks. Well, likewise, we are fans of yours. I wanted to start out, as I always do, because people like to know a little of the backstory of how people got to where they are today. Would you be kind enough to share your story of how you got to be an influencer in the world, Teresa?
I'd love to. Some people are born knowing what they're meant to do. In my case, it happened more by intervention. Like a lot of people, we often don't know what we're really good at until we start to have other people pointing it out to us. And, ironically, I'm from the Canadian equivalent of the backwoods. I grew up the youngest of a very large Northern Canadian family. And so as the youngest of a really big family, importance became a really important conversation to me from a very young age. And, as a result, I really became a go-getter in my careers. I really went after things and, tended to lean toward things that created high influence. And, I used to lead big industry task forces that would really tackle big problems in the sector I was working in. And, then I had what I would affectionately call my really bad year about 15 years ago. I can smile when I talk about it now because I now know it was one of the biggest gifts I've ever been given.
Really?
Yeah, and at the same time, in the first 6 months of that year, I had lost my father. My father had passed away, my marriage had ended, my business had failed, and my health was in a tailspin. And the only thing I was really clear on at that time was how incredibly unhappy I was. And I remember one day, I'm sitting, bawling my eyes out in the bathroom of my new condo. It's my post-marriage breakup condo. I've always been a renovator, so I'm just surrounded by tools. And I'm looking at these tools, and the only thought in my head is, it's me that needs renovating. Because I'm looking back over the last 25 years of career and realizing that I can't honestly point to the last time in my life that I was really turned on and juiced up happy. I've had lots of moments of happiness, but I can't really say my life has been happy. And so it was an amazing moment for my life because I made the decision right then, right there, that I'm going to be my next project.
Wow.
So I started signing up for every self-help course under the sun. I actually even went back and did an entire certificate in mediation because I've always been a conflict avoider and I knew I needed to get that handled. I got a lot more serious about my meditation and my yoga and my health. And very rapidly, my life started to change. Within a few years of that time, I had set up a charity to build schools in Africa. I quickly took 3 of my children's stories that I used to write for my kids, published them into books to raise money for the charity, quickly put all 3 on the bestseller lists. And then things happened really rapidly. The first was that I realized I didn't like being a children's author. I love writing stories, but going around to schools and doing kids programs wasn't really lighting me up. And the second thing that happened was I had people coming at me in droves saying, holy cow, 3 bestsellers in 8 months. How the heck did you do that, Teresa? And I realized that what was really exciting me and turning me on was working with people that wanted to make a difference and wanted to make change in the world and coaching them on how do you create energy and influence around what you're doing, how do you create word-of-mouth epidemics. And so I rebranded my business overnight, and I've never looked back since. I've discovered that my passion is helping people who would do good in the world, thought leaders and emerging thought leaders, really figure out how to influence change and create change in the world. And it's been pretty exciting ever since.
Wow. Well, you can see you're a perfect match for our community because that's what we're all about. We want to learn from you. How do we make a bigger difference? And it sounds like you have a lot of answers for us. I'd like to start first by asking you, what would you say is the mindset in this book, you start out with talking about mindset. What's the mindset of influence that people need to know?
You know, what a lot of people don't understand is that, you know, you learned a skill set, or you learned a set of rules starting in the playground. You know, you learned a set of rules around fairness. You know, I give something to you, you should give something to me. If I'm nice to you, you should be nice to me. And then we also learned an etiquette around networking in business. You know, we learned things like when you meet a colleague that may be important to you, you'd offer to buy them lunch or a coffee. And you only need to phone up the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and ask if you can buy them coffee, and faster than you can say restraining order, you'll figure out that there's a different set of rules and a different set of etiquette that apply to the highly influential. And a lot of the way they operate is highly influential people are masters at building relationship with each other. And they do it by gifting each other influence. And I know that sounds a little hard to wrap your head around right now. I promise you by the end of this hour interview, you will really get it. But just like if you want to get respect, what do? You go give respect to other people. If you want to get influence, you give influence to other people. And that really becomes the mindset of the influential. Who deserves to be endorsed? I will endorse them. And it becomes a routine habit and part of their day. It's one of the most foundational habits of highly influential people.
Could you go in a little more detail about that? That's really important, gifting influence to people. Can you explain that a little more for us?
Well, it starts with deciding that you want to build a relationship with highly influential people, right? Because, and you know, think about this for a minute in business, you know, and I get who you're following is, Lynn, that they're not people that are highly motivated by money. They're more people that are motivated by being of service to the world and being of service to others, which is great. And money is a good measure of that in terms of if you are of high service to others, money will tend to flow to you. So think about it for a moment. If you would pick one influential person in your industry, if they would endorse you, what would that do to your annual revenue? And if someone who's a service provider, you're probably doing math right now, right?
Right.
You're probably saying, well, right now I work 30 hours a week, and if somebody really influential endorsed me, I would be full. I'd be billing myself out 40 hours a week, and then you probably did some kind of calculation that said, well, an extra 10 hours a week, and I bill out at $175 an hour, that's about $25,000 a year. I made that up. I can't do math in my head. But the point is there would be a limit on the amount that that endorsement could do for you because you're working in a one-on-one capacity. And, you know, one of the other key habits of highly influential people, and this one is so obvious that often people forget to look at it, so I'm going to point it out because worth thinking about in context of your own business. Highly influential people tend to work in a one-to-many context. They, you know, they might have some element of their business or their practice where they deal with people one-on-one, but they also have a large part of their business where they deal with people in group settings. Maybe they're a trainer, a speaker, group coaching, or maybe they deal with their clientele on the internet and provide service to large numbers of people at once. The more you're in a one-to-many capacity, the less there is a cap on the amount of influence you can have, and I would add to that the amount of money you can make.
That's a good answer. That's very good. Obviously, right now we're reaching hopefully one-to-many, but all of you have different ways of reaching many people. So that's a really good point. I want to bring out a point that you make in Chapter 2 of your book, which is the Unspoken Rule book. And I'm going to quote a sentence here. It was the inspirational quote at the top of that chapter. You have to learn the rules of the game, and then you have to play better than anyone else. That's by Albert Einstein. So I want you to reveal some of these unspoken rules. You mentioned one just a few minutes ago about not calling up a CEO cold and asking to have coffee with him. Can you share some other? There's a lot of great, I want to tell everyone here that there's so much in here, and there are exercises that you can do that really get you thinking. So this is, to me, like a guidebook of what you can follow. So if you wouldn't mind sharing some of the other unspoken rules that people should be aware of when they're building relationships and building influence, that'd be great.
Well, you know, the first habit, and it's a great place to start, is that influential people solve a really big problem for other people. And it's an identifiable problem, and they do it in very specific ways. You know, if you think about what does it take for a 28-year-old fresh out of Bible college to become globally iconic? You know, of course, I'm talking about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Because he was actually only 28 when he first hit the global stage. And when you think about what he did, he stood in the biggest problem going on the planet at the time, which was racial inequality. And he also got behind very specific actions that people could wrap their head around and participate in. They did the bus boycott at Montgomery, Alabama. They did the march at Selma to protest different issues and things that were going on. And they used those as a context for people to wrap their head around, right? And so the biggest mistake I see a lot of business owners making is that they're too afraid to stand for the solution to a specific problem, especially people who've done a lot of self-work. You know, if you've done a lot of leadership training or empowerment training, you know, you end up being very focused on creating positive solution-oriented language in your life. You don't like to delve into the language of the problem, right? But the reality is, the unenlightened, the people that really most need your help, live in the language of problems. They don't think they need enlightenment. Oh, I just need to be more conscious and tuned in. I need to learn success principles. That's not the way they speak. They say, I need to find a better job. I need to figure out how to deal with my boss who's a complete SOB. Or, you know, if maybe they're going through a divorce, they think their problem is their wife is taking advantage of them or their husband's taking advantage of them. So when you present your business in the language of problem, you know, someone who practices traditional Chinese medicine, for example, will be far more influential and make a lot more money when they say, I'm a specialist in arthritic pain, or I'm a specialist in fibromyalgia, or I'm a specialist in working with people with pain-related injuries. And I realize that sounds counterintuitive because you're thinking, well, why would I exclude all those other clients, right? I can hear you all saying that.
Right.
And the reality is, if you had a brain tumor, you would want to go to a brain specialist, not a general practitioner. The brain specialist can still write you a prescription for back pain, and in fact, you'll be doubly grateful that they did. It does not mean you're turning away your existing clientele or the existing people that work with you. What it does mean is that you're putting a stake in the ground of this particular people with this particular problem are welcome to come to you for support, and you are, you know, especially focused on them, and you'll find yourself becoming a lot more influential and having a lot more people coming at you wanting assistance when you do that. So solve a big problem, do it in a specific way.
That's really good. And it makes sense that people would want to go to a back specialist if they have back pain, not just go to a general doctor. And it's really a matter of letting your niche know that you're out there for them specifically. That's a good point. Now, I love the fact that your company is called Wildfire Academy, and you talk about wildfire in your book. So can you explain a little more about what is wildfire, even a little of your history with wildfire, and what does that mean in terms of influence?
Well, you know, I do love the analogy of wildfires. Something you talk about in the book was, you know, growing up in northern Canada, my summer job in high school was actually running groceries to fire crews out in the wilderness. And so I've got some great stories to tell, but I've also had the opportunity to see a lot of wildfires up close. And, you know, not diminishing that they can be very destructive things that can cause a lot of hardship. They are also amazing forces of nature that really do cause a lot of change and rebirth. And I love the analogy of wildfire because if you talk to anyone who works in the forestry industry, they'll tell you wildfire needs three things: spark to light it, fuel for the wildfire to burn, and winds to spread the flames. So
would you repeat that again? Would you repeat that? I would like everyone to hear it one more time.
Spark, fuel, and wind. Those are the three things that create a wildfire. Well, in the analogy of what creates wildfire word-of-mouth epidemics, the spark is what we just talked about. How big of a problem do you solve for the world? And the thing you need to remember is a big spark catches easy. So don't make the problem of practicing at business, or don't make the mistake of practicing at business, right? If you find yourself saying, I'm just going to do this little thing so I can learn business, this thing that nobody really cares about, and then someday I will live my dream and tackle that big one, you're actually making business 10 times harder for yourself, because if you're solving a problem no one cares about, nobody's going to come to you as a client, right? So spark, big spark catches easy. The fuel is how passionate are you about what you do? You know, think Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., their passion was infectious. So here's the, you know, the next big mistake a lot of people make is around not living their dreams, not doing something what you really want. If you're in business just to make money and you're not actually doing that thing you really love, then you have an authenticity problem. Because doing what you love, doing what you're passionate about is where you're most genuine. And you want to be really genuine because that's where people will get enrolled and engaged in what you're doing and want to help you. So give yourself permission to live your dreams. The passion is the fuel that burns the wildfire. And just remember, strong fuel burns bright. The more passionate you are about what you're doing, the easier it is for the wildfire to burn. And the third thing in the analogy is wind, which is all those relationships with influential people that you need to talk about you and what you're doing. We talked earlier about the value of a single endorsement. Well, a word-of-mouth epidemic, a best-selling book, a best-selling CD, becoming the talk of the town, a word-of-mouth epidemic like that is nothing more than a couple of hundred influential people all talking about you all at the same time.
Wow. So we've got, I hope everyone's catching this, spark, fuel, and wind that will all be important ingredients in spreading the word about you. I want to pause for just a moment, and Roland, I am not looking at the comment track or common stream right now. Would you be kind enough to let us know who's out there and if there are any comments that you'd like to share? Roland, go ahead.
Yes, I think the people are sitting there mesmerized. I'm like the only one typing, but I know they're there.
Oh, no. All right, well, I can keep asking questions.
And if it's okay, is stop and ask people, can you type into the chat screen, what is it that you do in business and what are you challenged with, or what would you like to see more of? And give us some real life examples, because I'm happy to speak to real examples on this call and make this really relevant to your businesses. So. Or if you have specific questions like that you'd like answered, or places where you've been stopped, like maybe you've tried to meet an influential person and immediately run into their gatekeepers. So let's just take a moment right now while we're talking and start typing into the chat field anything that you'd like us to be focusing on.
Thank you, Teresa.
We have Tammy O'Meara, PFL affiliates. Elaine Nieberding is out there. Hi, Elaine. Carl Richards.
Hi, everyone.
V. Lynn Hawkins is out there. She's religiously following the series, even though she's not, you know, she's already had her session, but she keeps coming back and helping us out and supporting, as well as Elaine. And several people out here. I know that they're ready to comment, so I'm waiting for them to do so.
Well, that's right. I'm going to ask you a question while they're writing, because really, Teresa has invited all of you to even be able to come inside this hangout, which no one else has done yet, to have your questions personally addressed, and you can be in the room with us if you'd like. So I'm going to just start out by asking a question that's on my list here. What are some of the ways that you recommend in your book for business people to create influence? How can we, what I wrote here, what are the ways that we can influence change? Because we're all here to do something positive. That's why we're tuning into the show. So what are some ways you would recommend we can influence change?
Well, you know, building your influence is really just like building a muscle, right? And I can hear some of you out there saying, I just don't have the time to do that. So let me just start by saying breathing takes 24 hours out of your day. And you don't even think about it as something that you do. And influence is actually a lot like that. Once you get the principles and the concepts, becoming influential becomes a lot like breathing. You just naturally will end up doing what's necessary to become influential through the routine course of your day. So one of the reasons one of the things we created with the book is the 30-day influence challenge. It's a set of exercises to just help you build your influence muscle They're like 2-minute, 1 to 2 minute videos that you watch every morning, and then there's 1 to 2 minutes of exercises that you would do that day that get you in the routine habits, so that building influence becomes a lot like breathing to you. But the main thing you need to understand is that in order to get influence, you've got to give influence. So the main habit that you need to build is that when you meet influential people that you do authentically respect and admire, you want to be building relationship with them by giving them influence. That's what your social media is for. You could be recommending them on LinkedIn, blogging about them, hosting them on your own show, writing about them in your newsletter, offering that to connect them with other influential people, nominate them for an award. There are hundreds of ways that you can build influence with influential people. It's just a matter of understanding, how to do it authentically and avoid the mistakes that would tend to stop you in the conversation.
Thank you. I see we have a post here that Roland has shared with us. It's I don't see the name on this one. I'm loving this conversation. I would like added information about getting past, hi V-Lynn, past through influencing the gatekeeper. That's a great question, V-Lynn.
Yeah.
And Teresa, how do you address that to get through the gatekeeper?
Yeah, and that's a really important one. And let me just say this, and I say this with all love. The reason that you're running into gatekeepers is because you're being a bit weird.
Isn't it a normal thing, Teresa, for most people to encounter?
Let me give you an analogy. It's like you've been learning badminton your whole life, and somebody suddenly sat you on the hockey rink, but you've got no stick and no skates, and you're wondering why the hockey players are all shooting pucks at you, and you can't understand why none of them want to talk to you. That's the analogy I would give you, right? So the best way to answer this is to talk about the biggest mistake I see people make when they look to meet influential people.
Great.
I would affectionately call it the premature ask. Yes, I said the word ask. People always laugh when I say the premature ask. They're like, the premature what? Premature ask is the equivalent of you just moved into a new home and your neighbor comes by and the first thing they say to you is, great lawnmower, I can't wait to borrow that baby. Or maybe if you live in a condo, it's like, oh, I noticed you had a great stereo coming up the walk. I can't wait to borrow that stereo. Right? And at that point, you're probably rolling your eyes back in your head saying, shoot me now, who did I just move in next to? And people do this with highly influential people all the time. You see it at networking events when you know what you're looking for. The most influential person at a networking event is usually the host or the guest of honor. And you'll see the guest of honor walk off stage and there'll be a lineup of people waiting to speak to them. Half of them will have a book, a CD, or a product in hand. The other half want to offer to buy them coffee or lunch.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and the thing that you got to understand is offering to buy an influential person coffee and sample product is a lot like going to the new neighbor and saying, you're going to so love my kids, you're going to really enjoy babysitting them. Because those are all about you. They're
right.
Not about, your focus is not really on the influential person. An hour of their time is not worth the $5 coffee that you're offering to buy them.
Exactly.
Right? The coffee session would have way more value to you than it would to them. Those are all examples of premature asks. So, for those of you who are writers or speakers out there, stop giving out your book or your CD. That's a premature ask. What you want to do when you meet that influential person is offer them something first. I promise you, if you stand in line and go up to them and say, I love everything you were just talking about, can I repost some of your content to my blog, or can I host you at an event and have you speak at my event? I promise you there will be no gatekeepers in your way. In fact, they'll probably give you the name of the gatekeeper and say this person will arrange it all for you.
Wow. What a great comment, because what you're saying, it brings to life when you're talking about going up to a new neighbor and saying, someone coming up to you and saying, can I borrow your lawnmower? When people go up to influencers and they are asking to have a cup of coffee, it's very imposing because we don't even know this person. So what you're saying makes sense. If you're giving them something first, then hopefully you can get something in return. Give first.
Yeah, and that harkens back to the fact that influencers work in a one-to-many context. They don't bill themselves out at an hourly rate. That's not the mindset that they operate under. And so an hour of their time has extremely high value to them. Often they have huge organizations that they're supporting based on an hour of their time. And the bigger their team gets, the higher the value their time needs to hold. And therefore, it's actually a very selfish act to ask them for an hour of their time. They would tend to only want to go for lunch or coffee with you if you're proposing something that would have very high value to them.
That makes sense. We have another comment here, Teresa. And see if this, wait, my screen is, there it is. Elaine Nieberding. Hello, Elaine. Oh, my God. I have to get new contacts, Elaine, because this is very small font. I love how Teresa starts out her book with the words, shameless self-promotion. I would love Teresa to share a story about giving, about, I'm sorry, I can't read, about, can you read that to me, about gaining one of the endorsements for her book. I am blown away by the, can't read this, by the ones in the early pages of the book. So that's a good question. How did you, I know you have personal relationships with these people, obviously, or they wouldn't be endorsing you. Can you tell us how you got those endorsements, Teresa?
You know, the truth is I built personal relationships with those people, you know, and actually, let me tell you a story, right? I've been really fortunate to have Randy Gage adopt me as a mentor. In fact, Janet Atwood and Marcy have also often given me advice on my business, etc. And I don't take that lightly. 15 minutes of them giving me advice early on in my career might have been worth 10 to 20 hours of my time giving back to them. And so I got really intentional about how I thought about giving to individuals like that who were investing in me as an up-and-coming writer and author, right? And, you know, so some of the things I did that actually compounded my influence exponentially, I didn't do for that reason, you know? When Randy Gage, for example, if you don't know who Randy Gage is, he's one of the top business authors in North America. He wrote the book Risky is the New Safe. In fact, I think I've got a copy of his book sitting on my shelf here. Let me give Randy a shameless plug. Great book. He's coming out with a new book in January. But Randy has been very kind to mentor me on some of the bigger challenges I've had. Like, he's someone I can phone up and say, Randy, can I have 5 minutes of your time? I'm really struggling with something. Will you help me? And so when Randy was doing his book launch, he vulnerably admitted to Sean DeParron and myself, Sean's another level speaker, that he wasn't sure if he had enough radio to make it up high on the lists, because he was going for New York Times and USA Today. And so I just decided, wow, I owe this man so much. I'm going to make it my mission to get Randy more really great radio shows. He didn't ask me to do this. I just decided to do it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so Sean and I both played this game together. I spent 3 hours phoning every radio host I knew that had a show that hit more than 40,000 people. And I said to them, I have something really exciting for you. I can potentially get you Randy Gage the week his book hits the bestseller lists. He's an awesome, one of the top authors in North America. Would you like to reschedule who's on your show or shift your show around so you can fit him in? If so, I can get him for you.
Oh, wow.
And all of these radio hosts were like, oh my God, you can do that for me, Teresa? Thank you. So the interesting thing was, it built my influence with all these radio hosts. Was not my intention for doing that, right?
Right.
So I managed to get an additional 15, 20 interviews for Randy during his campaign. Now, did it make a huge difference? I don't know, because Randy already had a massive campaign. He's beloved in the industry, right? But he noticed that I did that for him. 20 additional interviews during your campaign. Trust me, I'm in the middle of my big campaign now. I've got a dozen or more people that are really going to the mat for me, sending me additional interviews, etc. You want to bet I'm noticing that they're helping me right now, right?
Exactly.
Now, the really cool thing about that was the day Randy hit the #1 book on USA Today, which is the top business list in North America, Randy put out a blog post talking about people who make a difference, and at the end of the blog post, he said, 2 ladies that made a huge difference for me this week were Shonda Perrin and Teresa de Grosbois. And I just really want to thank them from the bottom of my heart.
Wow.
Well, I was floored, because on the day that the entire world is focused on Randy Gage mentioned me in one of his video posts on YouTube and his blog. My following doubled overnight.
Wow.
From Randy Gage. And I for sure, I didn't do it for that reason. Do you understand?
Exactly.
And at the same time, when the main reason that I want to promote Randy Gage is I think the man is frickin' brilliant. Everything he teaches aligns with everything I teach. And he's, follow Randy. Randy's like a really salt-of-the-earth grassroots, tell it like it is, pull no punches kind of guy. You either love him or you hate him. But a lot of what he says makes huge sense. So I'm thrilled to endorse the man, and he's really been a big supporter of me stepping into my power as someone who's at the #1 international bestseller stage, right? So, the thing is, find those influential people, and you're not building relationship with them because it's not to get something back. If Randy gave me nothing back, I would still want to promote the man because of who he is in the world. Randy really invests in changing the conversation of this planet and helping other people become successful. Why would I not want to shout Randy out, And
Exactly.
at the same time, I'm so passionate about that he's taken notice. I've had other people, I could tell you equal stories about Janet Atwood or Marcy Shimoff or other John DeMartini who, really helped me a lot in my career. I owe a great deal. And the reality is they might only give me 5-10 minutes of their time here or there. But 5-10 minutes of their time has such high value because they really know what they're talking about. Their followings love them. It's almost like 30 seconds of Oprah Winfrey's time can quadruple your business overnight. Someone highly influential can do that for you. So you got to work to pick the ones that are authentic for you. Like, I would never put John DeMartini in my book if I didn't think John DeMartini was freaking brilliant and a gift to the planet. And at the same time, you got to not do it strictly because you want something back. There are highly influential people I endorse a lot that have never given me anything back, and I'm okay with that because their work is a gift to the world, and you never know where the payback is going to come from.
Exactly. That's so great what you just shared. I love it. Really, you're operating from the space of heart, and everyone you're working with is operating from that same space. So that's what you're noticing, that when you're authentic and you're giving from your heart, others want to give back. And as you said, it doesn't matter about money. It matters the big picture about what's right, what feels good, and it ends up resulting in success. I want to share a quote now. Roland, would you be kind enough to speak, read it aloud for me?
No problem.
Okay, thanks.
V. Lynn Hawkins, and it's like you guys are having your own conversation on the side here. Response back from your response regarding the gatekeeper. Oh my God, that is the best response to the gatekeeper question I have ever heard. The principle is not a new one. However, your response about how to ask the premature, about the premature ask is brilliant, and a couple of solutions you offered is perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you want to look at another question, Roland, but I wanted to get to a question that someone might not have thought of, but it was in your book, Teresa. You talk about celebrities versus influencers. And, you asked the question, what would you rather be, an influencer or a celebrity? And I had to pause for a moment, think about that, and I'd like you to address the difference.
Yeah. And, there are certainly people who are both. Right?
Okay.
But
Sure.
there's a distinction. Fame is a lot of people know and like you. Influence is a lot of people know, like, and trust you. So influence means they will take action based on you giving a call to action, right? So at the extreme examples, influence would be Martin Luther King Jr. Fame might be, Miley Cyrus, for example. And I don't want to diminish that she has some level of influence, but for the level of following, the level of influence might not be the same, right? And so it's interesting because there are celebrities who really do put a stake in the ground and say, my life is about actually causing something good in the world. Ellen DeGeneres and Oprah are great examples of that. They're not just famous. They routinely take a stand that people learn how to live better lives, right? And they support all kinds of causes. So when they give a call to action, whoa, influence happens, right? And in fact, we often see Hollywood superstars that start to have a great deal of influence. Like Angelina Jolie is a great example of that. She's gotten behind some very large international causes that have solidified the world falling in love with her. And so it's no longer just about Hollywood fame. She's now a person that is seen as a philanthropist.
That's true. And what you've done, which I think is very interesting, and we haven't even talked about it, I wanted just to add, unless you want to bring someone else's comment on in a moment, is you have, in addition to your book and in addition to your business, Wildfire Academy, where you're training people to be transformational leaders, you've created the Evolutionary Business Council. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about what that's all about, too.
Yeah, the EBC, as we call it, is a community of thought leaders and emerging thought leaders from all over the world that are dedicated to teaching the principles of success in some form. So it's mostly speakers, trainers, authors. We've got some radio hosts. We have several documentary makers in our midst. But what they do is they work to collectively assist and support each other in becoming more influential and more famous. And the goal that we stand in as an organization is that success principles, transformational principles, reach 1.2 billion people on this planet by the year 2020. And that number was gained very intentionally because that would represent the tipping point for planet Earth in terms of, you know, the average everyday citizen in every culture on this planet realizing that we can control our own success by learning to notice and control our own thoughts.
Yes, and that's something I think hard for a lot of people to realize today. You know, you say we can control our success. So many people still feel we have to get a good job. So can you speak more to the idea of how do we build our success, build our influence so we don't have to rely on someone else?
Well, start with the influence you already have, right? The biggest paradigm shift you can make is your social media is not to sell you. Your social media is the equivalent of the apple pie that you take the new neighbor when you want to meet the new neighbor. I have to say pie because my family are pie lovers.
That's good.
But, you know, use the influence that you already have. When you see someone you really respect and admire, shout out their show. You know, if you do nothing more, gift influence to Lynn and Roland. Like, look at this amazing show they've created. Help them get the word out and spread the word about their show, you know. I get asked to come on radio shows that hit 6 million people routinely, and I would still come on this one. Oh. Because what the work you guys are doing is so important, and it's such a value and such a stand for people. So here's my call to action to you guys who are listening. Share this show. That's a great first place to start, right? Get excited about people getting on this series, because whatever's right in front of you that deserves to be acknowledged or recognized, get in the habit of doing that. And this is what's right in front of you right now.
Wow, Teresa, that is so kind of you, you know, because I realize that we all have our choice of how we want to think. And I'm going to just do a little confession here to everyone. I wasn't sure if I would tell you, but I will tell you that I gathered up my courage to call Teresa. She was a referral to me. It was a cold call. And I told Teresa just recently in the green room that I'm kind of glad that I did not read her book until after I spoke with her, because I might have been too worried that I wasn't speaking properly. You know, how do you speak properly to an influencer? And she just told you. But I just let my heart kind of lead the way. And I think Teresa's heart felt what I was asking her at that deep level. I almost feel like crying because, you know, we speak more than our words. And I know you've heard this and other people saying that we are energy beings. So when we speak, people are not just picking up our words, but our energy. And I'm so grateful to Teresa, and also grateful that she just said that, because we have not had anywhere near 1 million viewers. Certainly that would be great. And maybe I have to learn to step into it, like, you know, you're stepping into your inner greatness. And what I love, and that's why I resonate so much with you, and I think everyone here should take courage, that we can learn to step out of our box, that we all have something to offer, even if we're not at the 6 million viewer level yet, but we have, as you said, some influence. And so if we're willing just to give of ourselves, then we can hope to have something come back.
Well, and I really love that you raised, Lynn, you know, that you might be nervous or whether.
Oh, yes.
And I really want to highlight that because, you know, I'm really committed that people learn how to play this game. And my request of all of you watching today is, as you learn these skills, be really compassionate for people who don't know them. Because we all started out somewhere where we didn't get the etiquette of influential people. And that's why, you know, I'm probably the most approachable person on the planet because I really get how many good people there are out there, everyday heroes, that don't understand the etiquette of the highly influential. And I often try and actually just be really straight with them and tell them what they're going to need to do to have influential people help them. And, you know, the reality is sometimes I do that and it backfires because people think I'm being really nasty to them. And the reality is 9 times out of 10 that people are really grateful and it really helps them get on their course, right? So I would just encourage you to be courageous and help other people learn the skill. In fact, after you read Mass Influence, loan it to someone and help other good people that want to cause change in the world really exercise this muscle. Because can you imagine if we lived on a planet where the average everyday grassroots hero or person working in business that just wanted to create a better corporation, or small business owners that want to create a better small business, if all of those people knew how to be effective at influencing positive change, because change doesn't happen in great big grandiose initiatives. I love that Margaret Mead quote, never underestimate the value of a few committed individuals to change the world, for indeed that's all that ever has. I really do believe in that. So, you know, share this skill as you learn it. Share the book.
Thank you. Roland has something that he wanted to add. Roland, you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to be careful not to just
Roland.
Yeah.
But
I loved your laughter during the show.
Yeah, I've got a serious glow on from listening to Teresa today. And she said a lot of really important words that are going to escape people unless you watch the replay and maybe take a few notes. But she was talking about giving influence, giving. I mean, stressing giving, not taking and not expect something back. And then she was talking about solving a really big problem for others. And that's how any kind of internet marketing or any kind of marketing scheme starts, is that if you've got a business, you probably solve a really big problem for some people. And the thing that I read about what she was saying in a different publication is that she addresses shameless self-promotion. But she links this with a phrase that I'd like her to discuss now, and she links it with deep love mode. Now, I know that they're not separable. It's got to be, you've got to be coming from the heart when you do this in the first place. But please tell people your take on deep love mode and how that fits into shameless self-promotion.
I love that, Roland. I love that you raised that, and thank you for bringing that to light, because one of the most foundational habits of highly influential people is, in fact, authenticity. And, you know, there's a lot of different definitions for authenticity out there of what makes someone really genuine. But first and foremost, I love it. I know I'm preaching to the converted here. And I know this is what you guys teach. And that, I mean, that's the main reason I'm on your show, because you teach this, right? That authenticity is your inside voice saying the same thing as your outside voice. In other words, your thoughts and your heart are in alignment with what's coming out of your mouth. So if you're letting your inner conversation get in the way, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough knowledge, nobody's going to take me seriously anyway, if you're beating the crap out of yourself in some way, that's stopping you from becoming successful and influential. And not only that, but that's stopping you from being of service to the world, right? You got to learn to love yourself and learn to love others to be really authentic, and that's where you'll gain the most influence, you know. And there's a lot at stake in this conversation, so I really want to highlight this because this is so important, Roland. Loving yourself is not a nice to have. It's a must have. Because when you don't learn to come to peace with your inner conversation, what's at risk is the only people that don't stop themselves from becoming influential based on an inner conversation that's self-defeating are in fact sociopaths. When you see a good person, an everyday hero, become successful and become influential, it's because they've learned to love themselves and they've learned to come to peace with those self-limiting beliefs that we all as human beings are hardwired with. So if you don't learn to take that on and overcome that, what we're risking is that our kids are going to grow up in a world run by sociopaths. It's not the world I'm committed to leaving behind, right? So one of the reasons I wrote Mass Influence was I really wanted good people, everyday heroes, to learn how to fall in love with that little inner child who created all those mind viruses, as Randy Gage would call them, or self-limiting beliefs, as it's often spoken of in the literature, and really step into being of outward focus, being of service to the world, because A, that's where you're most influential, B, that's where sustained happiness starts to happen, when you're not focused on yourself and your own problems, but focused on how you can help the world.
Oh, I love that. That is so beautiful, Teresa.
I've got to follow you everywhere after this.
Oh, yes, definitely. We're major fans. But I don't want to neglect anyone in the common stream because I'm not looking at it right now. Is there anyone you would like to bring up, Roland? If not, I have a final question to ask Teresa.
We have 8 minutes to go, and you better get on to it.
Okay, so here's the last question, and then we're going to announce the bonus gift. Teresa interviewed Dr. John DeMartini in her book, and she asked him an important question. What's the most important thing people need to know to step into the influence game? And he talked about playing big. Teresa, can you speak to what Dr. John DeMartini shared with you?
Yeah, I love that question because, John is such a generous human being, and I remember that day so vividly, because he was gracious enough to go for lunch with me, and I don't know if you know who John DeMartini is, but he's an icon in the success movement. His following is truly in the multi-millions, and he's probably one of the most effective people on the planet. And, one of the things I asked him is, how do you do everything you do? How do you get as effective as you are at changing so many lives? And he said, I really boiled it down to what did I really love doing? Because where I found what I really loved doing, that's where I was most effective. And he says, if I'm not speaking, writing, or on an interview, I'm not really stoked up. So he says, I created a team that does everything else, and I spend my days speaking, writing, or on interviews, or what we're doing right now, connecting and building powerful relationships that will really help serve spreading transformational principles in the world. And that I just about fell off my chair when he said that, because I realized, I think I do that. I have a team of like 14 people, and I'm pretty focused. But it really had me think, okay, in an 8-hour day, I still have, 3 hours of that helping my director of operations administer the team. So I'm not anywhere near where John is. I may have, on average right now, I'm doing 6 interviews a day, so I'm getting there, right? But it really was a wake-up call for me to say, wow, if you're really about teaching, figure out how to build your company so that that's what you're doing, teaching. And the rest of your company is run by other people who love doing what else is required, right? And what it really spoke to for me was focus. Focus on doing where you're most passionate, doing what you love. Because the reality is, God, you don't want me on bookkeeping, and you don't want me on organizing the staff, etc. I have actually one of my best friends is the director of operations for my company, Pam Bain. She's also an influential person in her own right. But she's a lot more detail-oriented and a lot better at project managing and managing a bunch of moving parts. So she manages the teams and the projects. She just checks in on me with what my vision is for how I want them to go. And often course corrects the vision because, sometimes the people around you can see more clearly than you can. So that actually was a real breakthrough for me talking to John that day, because he really had me take stock of whether I'm living what I teach at the level that I could be living it.
Oh, it's beautiful. Great comment. Love what you do and do what you love. And then everything else will just fall into place.
Yeah.
We have a last comment here. I'm going to ask Roland if you would be kind enough to read it for me, Roland, if you wouldn't mind. Authenticity is your inside voice
Saying
saying,
the same thing as your outside voice.
mm,
Love yourself and love others to gain influence. Loving yourself is a must-have. Teresa de Grosbois.
beautiful.
Got it.
And, well, will you reveal now, Teresa, the special bonus gift that we have for everyone listening and for all registered attendees as well? It's really great.
Well, I don't want there to be anything in your way of really stepping into being more influential. So we've set up this book such that if you go to the website, massinfluencethebook.com, we have a complimentary program for you. So if you're on this program, you can have it for at no charge. It's called the 30-Day Influence Challenge. It's the complimentary program to the book. We've priced the book at print costs. If you want to pick it up at Amazon, it's less than $7, or you can right now get it on Kindle for 99 cents. We've requested Kindle make it free, and we're still waiting to hear back. So if you're on a really tight budget and 99 cents is a stretch for you, feel free to wait a couple days, and it will be free on Kindle. And you know what I would say is, do yourself a favor and spend the 3 minutes a day exercising your influence muscle, because this really is as simple as breathing. When you get it, your influence will just naturally start to grow, and your ability to cause positive change in your companies, your communities, your families, in the world at large will grow exponentially. So that's massinfluencethebook.com.
Wow. I was going to ask you for a closing statement, but that was beautiful. That was a great closer. And we have a closing message here. Roland, would you read that for me? I would appreciate it if you would.
Schwa Slater says, thanks so much for that reminder to take the influence off ourselves and put it on the good we can do in the world, Teresa. That is so powerful for getting over the fear of contacting influencers.
Yeah.
Thank you. And as an extra gift for everyone, and you know Teresa's time is very valuable. She just said she's going to be speaking on a radio show with 6 million viewers, and we don't have that many at this time, but each one of you are worth 1 million. You are, because you each can touch 1 million lives. You never know what one little action can do. And I've participated in a variety of volunteer programs. I'm sure many of you have. And you never know what one little thing you do for someone can do to make a difference in their life. So as the extra added value for everyone here, Teresa has agreed to spend about 10 minutes, because then she has to go to another interview, and meet with you in the green room. That's right here in this computer. Roland will post a link after we stop the broadcast, and you can have a chance to meet her personally, ask her any question, or just make any comment that you have. But I would highly engage with her and read her book. I'm going to be your promoter, Teresa, and I'm going to promote you on social media, because I just love what you're doing. And I think that when you find people you resonate with, this is basically a higher spirit telling you that you want to be around those people, because we can together make a big difference, and we just need to believe in ourselves. Any last message, Teresa, before we close the program?
You know, I would just say, give yourself permission to live your dreams, you know, and get in action around your dreams, because until you get in action around your dreams, you're just dreaming, you know, and your dreams are scarier to you than they are to anyone else on the planet, because they're your dreams. And you are the person that is most custom made to be living those dreams, because they're your dreams, and you'll be most passionate about them.
Wow.
Cool.
Thank you so much. Well, I hope all of you have a lot of notes to review, and please feel free to watch the replay. This will be up through the weekend, so you can take a look at it at your leisure. And I would encourage you to come back next week. We have another wonderful guest, Dr. Steve Taubman, who will be helping you in building your productivity and time management, and he's just a wonderful guy all around. So until next week, keep on making a difference. Please join us in the green room if you have a few minutes. You'll have a very special opportunity to meet Teresa. And until then, all the best to you. Bye-bye.